Welcome back. In my last video, I practiced one-move checkmates, which I apparently needed practice on, and in this video, I'm going to practice two-move checkmates on the Lichess Puzzles by Theme page. All right, let's do it. Mate in two. I'm just going to try to get as many of these as I can. Mates in two. I see that I have a check here protected by my rook, but the king will escape. Oh wow, that's not even, no. Sorry, the king won't have to escape because the queen would just capture, so that's not it. Maybe it's here, check. How do they get out of that? Okay, there they would have to, the opponent would have to move the king to d3. And then I would leave my queen where it is to continue cutting off this whole file here, or this whole rank there, sorry. And my pawns are cutting off this, and then I think I would deliver the final blow right there. Okay, that was it. And I got 2 points for it. Yay. All right, that puzzle was rated 1805. I assume we're going to get some harder ones. Mates in two. Okay, this one I'm not sure about. If I start by capturing the g2 pawn with check, the king can just take it, and then I don't have a mate. If I start here, the rook can just capture it. Oh, and then that would be mate, right? I think that's it, because my rook is cutting off the squares behind the king, and the knight is guarding that spot. So I think that's it. And then that's mate. Okay, that one's rated slightly higher, and I got 3 points for it. Again, the idea is that I have missed, and you probably have too. Even if you're rated higher than me, statistics show that mates in twos are more often missed than mates in ones, and it makes sense. On a mate in one, sometimes, you know, the move is obvious, and sometimes it's not that obvious, but if you look a second, you can find it. On mate in two, there's not the mate immediately. You have to position your pieces in order to get a checkmate. I'm thinking it might be this knight move here, because currently my pawn here is protecting this knight. My d pawn is protecting that square. My rook is protected by the knight, and it cuts off all of these. So moving my knight to a5 would be a check there, forcing the king over one. And then that would be checkmate. That's checkmate, right? Because the king can't move forward because of my pawns, and my knight still cuts off this square. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay. Wow, that one was rated in the 1900s. And of course, I should be getting better at seeing these without the arrows. Now this is looking dangerous because my opponent has a mate right here if I don't do something immediately. My knight is guarding that square, but so is their bishop here. Going down is not the answer, I don't think, because their rook would just respond by capturing. A knight. Oh, maybe it's the knight move, because that's a check, and that pawn is pinned by my queen. They would have to take with this pawn, and then that would be made, I think. Check. Well, even if they didn't, they don't have to take back with the pawn, but they couldn't move here because I would have had a discovered check on this rook because my knight's not in the way anymore. Or not a discovered check, but you know what I'm saying. My rook is covering that spot. But they don't have to take. They could move over. But if they moved over, then this would be made. Okay. Little complicated, but just a few seconds of reasoning that out should do the trick. Okay, wow, my king has been chased out into the middle here. But their king is in a very vulnerable situation, and instead of defending it, they have moved a rook over here to line up with their queen. So I have a mate in 2. I'm going to guess that it's here. Playing my queen to e6 check, guarded by my pawn. And of course from there, the queen cuts off all of these squares, and the knight is guarding that one. So the king would be forced. Yeah, if I went queen at e6 check, the king is forced there to g7. And then I come back here to f6, and that's made. Right, and that's the dovetail swallows mate or whatever it's called. Pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. It's one of those two. It's one of the bird mates. Dovetail, swallows mate, something like that. Oh, and I got 5 points for that one because it was rated over 2,000. Okay, well, that's 5 in a row. Let's keep going. I'd almost said I'll keep going until I miss one, but I think even if I miss one, I should keep going for a certain number of minutes just because I do need this practice. Okay, now this looks bad, and if I take, they take me, and my opponent is up on material, so that's not it. But if I move this knight anywhere, I have a discovered check. And if I move the knight here, it blocks the queen from attacking my queen, and that's check. But in that case, I think the king just sidesteps that check, and then they wouldn't take because it's guarded by the pawn, but I'm still way down on material and I don't have a follow-up. What about this check? That's a double check from my queen and my knight. The queen is pointing at both of those squares but can't hit them. But again, the king just sidesteps. The king just sidesteps. Okay, same idea, but different spot. I move my knight to d7, discovering that, no, because then the queen just takes my queen. My idea there was that my knight would cut off these two squares. And once the king moved... No, that doesn't work. Never mind. What in the world? What about this one? That's double check. With my... Yeah. Okay. Because even though the opponent is pointing pieces at both of those squares, they cannot capture one of them because the other piece has them in check too. Okay, so knight to g6 check. The king has to move here to g8, and then I deliver checkmate in the corner protected by the knight. Wow. Oh, and I didn't get any points for that? Oh, no, I got 4 points for that. All right. I knew it had to do something with moving the knight, but I had to move it to a place where the opponent couldn't just kill my queen or just sidestep and be safe. So just by process of elimination, we came up with this where even though the knight is in danger and the queen was in danger here, they were both checking the king, so it had to move, and then the knight protects that corner square. Okay. And I don't know why I keep looking at the points. I really am not concerned with my puzzle rating on Lichess. Okay. Here, I have a couple of checks this way. I don't know which one is better. I'm going to suspect that the queen sacrifice is better. Because it forces either the rook to capture or the king to move. But if the king moves, then I go down one more and it's mate. Whereas if I capture with the bishop, they're not forced to take back. The king can move and then it's relatively safe. And if I move my bishop, then they can take my queen, I guess. I think it's the queen move first. Queen captures f7 check. If they take back with the rook, which I suspect they would do, then I have mate on the back rank, e8, because my bishop would be pinning the rook. And as we said, if the king moves over, then I just take the rook and that's mate. Okay, that was mate in 2. Next. I think I see this. My queen is protected here. Of course, the king can take my knight, but then I have checkmate on h5. Protected by my pawn. Okay. And I didn't get any points for that one. Oh well. The idea is to see these patterns, to recognize them when they show up in games. I do have a protected square here for check, but then I think the king goes to the back. And I don't have... I could go back, but then the king comes back, right? Oh, no. I was saying if the king went back, I could check over here, but the opponent has a knight. Not only has a knight guarding that square, but they also have a rook that could block, protected by the knight. Is it there? No, because again, the king moves back. No, because the king just takes it. Wait. It's the bishop, right? I didn't see my bishop. Because of all these pieces in the way, my bishop doesn't look like it can get there. Okay, so it is my bishop check here. The king cannot come here because of my pawn. Wait, it could go here though. But if it went there, that's mate. And if it goes back, it can't go back. Wait. It can't go back right now because my queen is guarding that square. So it has to come forward. And then that's mate. Okay. Wow, I almost didn't see that one. Okay. The king is very vulnerable down here, I've noticed. But if I check on e1, the king obviously only has one legal move, which is here. And then I don't have a mate. My rook is in danger and has to be moved. And this wouldn't, and this check would not be effectual at that point because they could block with their pawn, right? If I went here first, they went to their only legal square. If I came back to a5 with my queen, they would block with the pawn, and then there's nothing protecting my rook. Also, as soon as this pawn moves, I'm going to be in check. So it has to be a queen check first, does it not? That again leaves the king only one legal move. But then I have mate here with my queen. Okay. Again, like a dovetail or swallow's mate, whichever one that is. As long as that square is protected and no other enemy piece is attacking it. Okay. I'll have to look that up because I keep saying it's one or the other. I don't know which one it is. I was just looking at the username of the person who played this game. All the Lichess puzzles that I know of come from actual games. And up on the upper left, it says it was between Kotip and Stimpy Wizzletinks. Stimpy Wizzletinks. What an unusual name. All right. Well, I noticed that my pawns cut off all these squares from the king, even if the knight's not there. And my bishop's cutting off that square. My knight's cutting off that square. Okay, so that's a check. Which then cuts off this square from the enemy king. And of course this one. So the only way out, I think, is for them to block with their pawn. But then I would just take it and that would be mate. Okay. That looks like, what, an 8 or 10 in a row, the little purple boxes across the bottom of the board are listing the puzzles that I have solved so far. And if you've noticed that the colors are different, I mentioned in my previous practicing checkmates video where I was doing mates in ones, I found a browser extension called Prettier Lichess. It's available for both Chrome and Firefox, and it lets you customize the colors. So I have customized the colors. I'm continuing to play with them a little bit, and I believe it also changes the font and the layout slightly. So worth experimenting with if you don't like the exact look and feel right now. The only checks I'm seeing right now are here and here. Of course, that one fails to the bishop. If I check here, the king could just move, and I don't have a follow-up check, again, because of the bishop. No, the king can't move because my rook is protecting these two squares. The king has to go here, blocking its bishop, and then that's mate, protected by my rook. Okay. You've noticed this pattern in this series here, is that I keep failing to notice the pieces far away from the king, which that's something I need to work on apparently. So if I have a bishop way over here, I need to be paying attention to the fact that it cuts off these squares. Currently I do not have a bishop way over there, so that's irrelevant. Okay, the rooks protect each other, and they are cutting off these squares from the enemy king as well as this one. If I were to check with my knight over on h6, that would force the enemy king to step back, and then I think I would have mate down here with my rook because it would be protected by the knight. Okay, that was it. Because the king couldn't come back because of the knight, so the knight cutting off both of those squares. All right, and I'm getting close to 20 minutes. How many puzzles have I gotten? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Let's try to do 2 more and make it 15, which seems like a more, not round number, but... well, the king has just moved out of check. That's Just a good way to trade queens, which I don't need to do right now because I'm way down on material. My advantage is that their king is not safe. And that I have open H file. I mean, what can it be? What can it be? This check, I think I lose after they take my queen on G7. Let's see, there's a check on H5, but then the king can go back where it was. I can check with the pawn, but wouldn't the king just... well, it would have to capture it. No other legal moves. And then that would be mate. Because I think that's the only check that leaves me a mate, right? Because it has to capture. It can't go back because of my queen, and it can't go here because of my other pawn. So yeah, on that check, and there's no other piece that can capture it. So the king would have to go there. And then I bring my queen back to H5, and it's mate because my queen cuts off these squares and that one and this one, and my pawn is still guarding that one. Wow. Okay, that one was difficult. Let's do one more to finish off this video. Clearly, I still need some more practice. Okay, I see that the A file is completely open, and I can take my rook all the way down there. I mean, my queen all the way down. But if I go all the way down to A1 with my queen, then the king escapes here. And then I don't have a mate on the next turn. If I don't go all the way down, if I go to A2, the king escapes there. And I don't have a mate on the next turn. So what is it? What is it? My goodness, yeah. Okay. Well, maybe I should have stopped while I was ahead. Right? If I go there, it escapes. I don't have anything guarding that square or anything that can hit that square other than my queen coming back. And then it goes there, and that's not made into. And if I go here to A2, queen to A2 check, the king only has one legal move. And then obviously the same problem would occur if I went to A1 at that point. The king would just escape to either one of these. Queen to A2 there. What do I don't have any follow-up there. I mean, that's as a check, but it's not mate because of two enemy pieces that could capture there. There's no other way to like sneak in from behind or anything, right? Because I mean, the knight's guarding C3. So my knight is hanging right now, and the bishop is hanging. But if I take the bishop, that's not forcing a checkmate of any kind. What in the world? But yeah, and it's not hopping this knight in, right? I don't think it can be because they can just take that, and it's not a check to begin with, so they don't have to do anything. The only thing that would do is guard these two getaway squares, even if they couldn't take the knight, which would make this mate. So if I could find a way to get the knight there without them taking it, then that would be mate, because the knight would guard that getaway square. but I can't get the knight there without them capturing it. Not in 2 moves. Okay, well, I have stumped myself on this final puzzle of this video. I don't see, there's no check over here. And again, the knight guards that square, the queen and their rook guard that square. This doesn't threaten anything. Well, it does threaten taking that pawn, but that wouldn't be mate. And it's a mate in 2. So even though I know it's a mate in 2, I'm still not finding it. Oh, well, that would be horrible. Yeah, because of their queen. Okay. That's also not threatening a mate in 2, because their pawn can just take it, and even though I would have a follow-up check, their queen could just capture there. I would also have this follow-up check, but then the pawn would capture. And I know that the first move doesn't have to be check, but I know it's a mate in 2, so, or it's supposed to be. So if the first move isn't a check, the first move definitely has to ensure that the following move is checkmate. Usually that means the first move is a check, but not always. So let me go back to my first instinct. Oh. Yes, the king can come here, but then my rook goes to a2. And my queen is cutting off all of these squares on this diagonal. My knight is guarding that square. The rook would be hitting all these, and the queen's hitting all these. Okay. So it was easy. I just didn't follow that through far enough. Okay. Oh, and even after all that time, I still got 3 points. Maybe there's not a timer on Lichess like there is on chess.com. All right. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you for your support, and we will see you next time.